Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Strand Tennis Center podcast, filled with tips, advice, tennis, not tennis, just life advice too, whatever you need. Like it on YouTube, share it on the podcast as well. Thank you. Welcome to the Strand Tennis Center podcast, everybody. I guess we're going through our preseason series of interviews with coaches. We're lucky enough to have James Cai here, Chatham High School boys and girls coach. Boys season coming up. We had John Thompson in last week. We're going to have some other people just discussing the preseason. Coach, how are you?
Good.
Good. How is, well, it's been tough. We were supposed to start Monday, right? And we've got some snow issues.
Yeah, I mean, we've been looking forward to the season, since the end of last season. But unfortunately, we got to deal with Mother Nature. It's on our side. But should be better tomorrow. We're going to get on the courts, just, do some drills, get the kids, used to the outdoor conditioning. I think that's the first thing we're going to do during the first week of tryouts. I know most people will play challenge matches from the get-go, but I think on my team at least, we get used to the court condition first, because you transition from indoors to outdoors, huge difference, and then we'll gradually get into challenge matches. It's been brutal. It's also, the coldness of that we have to deal with on a daily basis. So,
well, if people aren't familiar, we're in the Northeast here, but it was very mild winter, January, February. I thought you guys were going to start and it was going to be no problem. And then we just quickly had snow once a Tuesday in March, and it's just been not good. It's not conducive to play tennis at all.
Yeah.
Usually when I played in high school, you get some cold days and it's not bad, but you just can't play in snow in this kind of weather. It's.
I think historically in the past 2-3 years, we have had some cold March and cold April. Yeah. I think NJSIAA postponed the season, a couple weeks, later. So, which is a good thing for us, I think. Yeah.
I talked about this with Coach Thompson about starting the season later and ending it later, because he said there's only a few teams that are still playing late in the season. Why don't we let them play and not have it be such a difficult time in March with weather? What do you think?
I think for me, I would rather have a season, starting at the end of March. And then most of public schools will finish a school year the middle of June. Yeah. So kids, they can still play if they're competing at a state level, either sectionals or individual tournaments. And, we can start our first match the middle of April, because that's when most schools have their spring breaks. So I think, at least we'll have effective preseason to get all the challenge matches in, to get the guys on the courts. Because you don't want to spend the first week in an indoor facility or doing workouts. Right, so that's the challenging part, but it's not really our decision, our call to make. But I wish we could start the season a little bit later, like one or 2 weeks. That'll.
Do you think they're doing it because they just want kids ready for exams? They don't want to interfere with SATs or whatever. What do you think why are they doing it?
Well, I think this year they are shortening all the seasons, not just the spring seasons, because they didn't want to have any overlaps between winter and spring seasons. But I think overall SAT dates are announced a lot earlier. Kids are aware of that, and then for the state tournament they post it online so people know these days. If you don't want to participate at a state level, you don't have to play. But I think play in June when the weather is nice and kids are almost the last week of June, we don't have a lot of. I'm a teacher, so I know what we do in June. So I think it's worth investing the time in June for all these sports. Yeah.
It would just seem a lot easier and a lot. The season would go a lot easier because I remember playing. And again, like I said, March stunk. It was not any fun. Yeah. You didn't play any quality matches, and you felt like you didn't play your best tennis.
Right.
And by the time you got started, you felt like you were 4 or 5 matches in, and you didn't feel like you really played your best tennis.
I know. Because you didn't prepare enough.
Yeah.
I know. Majority of the seasons should be based on your off season, not your, preseason or during the season. But still, I think you got to get the rhythm. As I said, in our area, you're transitioning from indoor tennis to outdoor tennis. That's the tough part. They've been practicing from October to February, right? So these time that you're spending, off season, you're like, oh, I can't. The ball's different, right? Mm-hmm. Tension, even for the strings, tension will be different. But the ball bounces differently, so everything's going to be different for the first couple weeks.
I think that's a big deal because, I mean, what other sports? I mean, soccer's outside, baseball's outside, basketball's inside wherever you go. Tennis is really the one sport where you have all of these different elements, especially in the Northeast. You know, if you're not in Florida, you're not in some warm weather environment where you can play outside all year. This is a weird transition because you got to play on a different surface, different lighting, a ceiling, all those things. Then you got to deal with the sun and you got to deal with all this. It is a tough transition for the first month or 6 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. You know.
How is your team looking this year? What do you think? What are your hopes?
So we're gonna have a very big team this year. I have, speaking of JV first, I have 24 guys trying out for JV. This year we unfortunately have to cut some boys because you know, there are only 10 boys that can play at the JV level. So, you know, 5 doubles courts. So the competition is gonna be crazy for all the boys. But it is a reality because we don't want kids just to sit out, and then it'll become a supervision issue for the coaches. On the varsity level, I have 16 boys, including all the returning players and seniors. I believe it's the same amount of girls I had in this past season. So it's going to be a very experienced team this year, but also. I have 1 freshman and a new transfer student, so some newcomers, but it's going to be a mix of everybody.
How many did you lose last year?
Juniors, JV, I have 4 coming up, and then I have 2 returning. Interestingly, I have a super senior, Saurav Patel.
Oh, okay.
Yes, technically he graduated last year, but he's doing a Bridger program, taking classes at CCM, and he's committed to Maryland.
Okay.
Because we lost, his sophomore year due to COVID. He's doing the Bridger program, so he's eligible to play this year for the high school.
How many kids are in that situation? How many kids? I mean, that's pretty rare, even though you have an extra year of eligibility technically. How many kids you think are using that? I mean, that's a hard estimate. Don't they just want to go to college probably, or everybody's an exception, but I'm having trouble thinking about. I don't think I've known anybody that has done that and taken their eligibility to use another year.
I know a few players, they took a gap year. I think John Walontias from Del Barton, he took a gap year. But, I mean, it depends on school. I think we have, I think public schools have this, or public schools are eligible for the Bridger program. So some other schools, like Del Barton, or private schools, they don't allow that. Yeah. So you have to graduate. Once you're done, you're done. But
I know a lot of kids that transfer for that extra year because those schools don't allow it. So they'll just transfer, go to another school for a year. They'll go to Lawrenceville and do a 5th year and things like that.
I mean, a generation of players lost 1 year of tennis. That year I remember, I had a Pedro Cataruzzi, Thomas, Alberto Thomas, Saurav Patel. These guys, they all lost that year. It's very. I mean, I feel bad for them. That was going to be a great year for them. So.
There was another thing we were talking about in regards to recruiting the way private schools can, but it seems like we were talking about last week, I think, Santi, there's a lot of public schools in the top 10 and top 20. Yeah. So it is really a misconception to think that a lot of these private schools are getting all these kids when most of the public schools are probably just as successful or more successful than those private schools. Do you think it's just the area we're living in, the space we're living in, these players, high school, I wouldn't say it's not a throwaway, but it's an addition to what they're doing. If they're playing tournaments and doing those things and they're good, there's no reason for them to find another school for tennis. It would only be education-wise. Yeah. I'm not really sure what you think.
I mean, I think from my perspective, tennis is a money-driven sport. You spend a lot of money, privates, clinics, and, if you live in let's say a good school district area, I think it depends on the parents, if they want to send the kids to the private school or not. But I think most of, like Chatham, I mean, we are very privileged to have all these kids in the area. They have spent enough time and money on the sport and also school. So that's their family option. But I think it's hard to say, but most private schools, they're still getting a lot of players, to be honest with you. But I mean, at least for my experience in the past 10, 12 years, I only have to deal with maybe a couple situations when the player's like, oh, I have to go to play the tournament, or I won't be here due to the season. And maybe one or two players who live in Chatham, but they went to a private school. Not a lot of people, because they know that Chatham is a great school district.
Yeah.
You get the same amount of education as you get from a private school. You don't need to spend that much time. But sometimes it's a family tradition. They send kids to private schools. So
2 follow-ups on that. What is your rules on that in regards to kids, treatment-wise? Do they get special treatment, or is it case-by-case basis, or is it a flat rule with you saying, like, you have to play a certain amount of matches, you can't do this or that?
So I think the greatest incentive for this kind of player is we have the state tournaments, the individual tournaments, singles and doubles. Like if you're first singles on on my team, and you think, oh, I'm too good, I can skip practice or skip certain matches, I'm going to tell you, you have to play these matches to get yourself qualified for the state tournament before the cutoff.
Okay.
So you have to be here. Otherwise you are not just missing the state tournament, but also ruining the chances for our second singles players to get qualified.
Correct.
I think that's a valid point. But also, I think I'm lucky enough to have a lot of good players on my team. So, and we have great practices. So I think that's if you think that you're wasting your time, I think you're wrong. So, yeah.
And the other follow-up question: Have you ever, do you remember in history, lost a kid to a private school that was in Chatham? You thought they were coming. Is it ever? Do you have any memories of that?
I don't recall anyone who was coming to Chatham High School and then transferred to like a private school. But I knew, I think the Andersons,
Yep.
the girls, they went to Kent Place, right? They live in Chatham. I think Nick Gritz, who lives in Chatham, he went to Del Barton. But I don't recall any other players on either side, who live in Chatham and went to private school. So it's, I would say maybe 10%. That's the most you can think of. So okay. You're correct. Public schools, they're still getting decent players. Most, like, I think East Brunswick, Tenafly, Northern Highlands, like Chatham, Summit, Milburn, all the Westfield, all of these affluent districts. So they have great education, great tennis program. I think it's if parents can balance it out, it's a family choice. So.
I think in this area, there's a lot of people that play tennis.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a good sample size of players. There's
Absolutely.
always going to be that player that's a national player, and they probably won't play. Only sometimes senior year, like Anna Bryland played for Milburn. She went to Wake Forest, won the NCAAs over there. She played her senior year because she just wanted to be back home.
Yeah.
Some things like that happen. Goal sets. Two questions on this. Have you ever had a team that, how many times have you had a team you thought you knew was going to shake out and surprise you? Is usually your internal perspective on a team, does it usually shake out, or do you get surprised by a team?
I think coming into the season, I would, have a certain expectation for my players. I knew what kind of level they would be performing, and then throughout this preseason, because I haven't seen them for almost 6 months usually. The only thing I keep tracking is their UTR to see if they have played any tournaments or not. And I will, during the first week, I'll look at how they play, how much they have improved from the previous season, and then I will set, an internal expectation for myself and see how much these guys can improve during the preseason and during their season, because during matches they can still improve and get some experience how to handle different situations. But I think, we were just talking about it yesterday with the whole team. I had a team meeting. Everyone was there. We talked about our short-term goals, long-term goals for the season. Your individual expectation and your expectation for the team. So we had a good conversation. Everyone was talking about these aspects that they're trying to improve. People brought up I want to improve my serve. I'm going to eliminate my double faults during the first week of tryouts,
Sure.
or work on my conditioning, things like that. So these are great things that my guys are thinking about. That's why you have to have these certain goals, short term and long term. But interestingly, a lot of them brought up, okay, long term, I just want to get better. No, that's great. You want to get better, but I think it should be more specific, right?
Sure.
Right? I want to, what kind of game I can get better. So
No, you have to have specific goals.
Right.
We always say that if you give general questions, you get general answers. If you say you want more money, I give you $1. That's more money. You have to be very, very specific.
Yeah, I think once like if you can improve 1% a day, right? If you do that on a daily basis, 5 days a week, in a month, you can. If you play 20 times a month, you can improve 20% of your game. Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah.
If you think about it, I mean, don't shoot for big goals. I want to be a state champ. That's not gonna happen. Just maybe I'll win my first challenge match. I'll try to, stay healthy, stay injury free. So a lot of my guys brought that up. That's good to know. But how do you stay injury free? That's another topic, right? Yeah. So it's.
Has there been a team, going back to it, that had just off the top of your head, can you remember a team that just surprised you that you thought, oh boy, we're rebuilding, we're not going to have a good year, and I mean, does it happen, or is it just usually what your instincts tell you?
I think I follow my instincts pretty well.
Okay.
And then I knew how the year is going to look, and
okay.
I mean. Yeah, I think most of the time I'm correct, but anyone surprised me?
That's a hard question.
Yeah, I think
we can shelve it. You can think about it. Little history. Yeah. Did you always want to be a coach when you started? You're a school teacher there too, as well.
Yeah.
Did you always want to coach? When did you get that bug? You were in college. You went to school. When did you feel like you wanted to?
So,
or is it just a natural? Hate to interrupt you. Is it just a natural thing because you're teaching, you're coaching as well? Did you just want to expand on that?
So, interestingly, like the way I got this job, it was 11 years ago, I think, and I was supposed to be the JV coach for the Chatham boys team, and the head coach had to leave in the middle of the year.
Yep.
So I took over the program. I still remember, at this point, the first day of the tryouts. It was me and 50 boys. I had I think those speakers on myself, and we were just doing conditioning at the middle school courts. Me, 50 boys. I was doing squats, push-ups, running around, jumping jacks with the boys. It was a great year. I'm telling you, it was a great year. The boys, we had a great experience together. I still remember that first year. I think that's the most memorable year I've ever had. Despite all the great years after that, but I think. Getting to coaching, I think it was a very smooth transition for me because I played at Drew University. After graduation, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for a couple years, and I went back to teaching. So I always loved tennis. I always enjoyed coaching tennis on the side during that time. So when I took the teaching job here at Chatham High School, I thought why not? I'm gonna give it a try and then. Yeah. And the head coach said, yeah, sure, why don't you come on board? And I tried to help out. Then all of a sudden he was gone, unfortunately. Yeah. So that's how it happened.
But these things kind of happen, right?
Yeah,
you're just in the right place at the right time. You're working hard, serendipity happens. It's not like the movies where you make this grand decision about your life and all of this.
It's more meant to be. You were there, as you said, right time, the right person, So I enjoy it. I still enjoy coaching. I think personally I'm a very competitive person. Yeah. So I try to encourage my boys to do their best to compete on the courts. I mean, some people might criticize and say, okay, it's not about just winning. It's about having fun. Absolutely, I agree. But I think if you want to have fun, you got to start winning first.
Oh, sure. I mean, winning is winning solves a lot of problems.
If you keep losing, if your record is 0-5, you're not gonna have fun.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be.
You're gonna be miserable, right? Yeah. So I mean, get out and compete. If you're playing your best tennis on the court and you come off the court and tell me, Coach, I did my best, that's great. I'm gonna say great job. I'm not gonna say anything. But if you're slacking, if you're just getting frustrated by some easy unforced errors, I'm gonna tell you we gotta rethink what you did there. We gotta change your mentality. I think. Delby, I mean, we have been competing against them for the past 10 years. They're an incredible team. They have that winning mentality because you keep winning, you get confidence. So that's why I think I encourage my guys to be competitive, to get out there, do your best. I mean, they're better guys, but you guys could be better. Yeah.
As a coach, do you find yourself, and when you started this, did you find yourself trying to soak in information? Were you always learning? Is there anything that came across to you that you could recommend to even other coaches, other teachers, any books that you read, anything that you felt like, wow, this is really helping me out?
Well, I think as a coach and teacher, we are the best thief in the world. I think that's a phrase I've heard, because there's nothing wrong to steal other people's idea. There are plenty of resources online and from other coaches. When you see different clinics or different private coaches, there's always a chance to learn.
Yeah.
Because if you're a good player, but it doesn't mean you're a good coach. You have to, deliver your message to your player, and everyone's different. You have to coach in different ways, I think, and every year is different for me. But to me, I'm always learning. I'm always, I think when I'm playing, I'm always learning from other people, from different facilities, from different coaches. So I think that's the best way to be a better coach. There's no best coach in the world. There's only a better coach to be.
Yeah, I agree.
I think.
A couple of tactical things and then macro things.
Mm-hmm.
Challenges-wise, when you have all these kids that are trying out, is it cross-court challenges for the JV? Do they do full courts? There's so many of them. How do you handle that amount of kids?
I think this year we're going to make a little change. I'm still going to communicate with my JV coach. I think with the weather, and so many kids on the team, we're still going to do a full court challenge match, but we'll most likely do a tiebreaker.
Okay.
At least everyone gets a chance to serve, because serving is part of the game. You can't just feed the ball and start playing the cross-court points. So at least we can shorten the time, and at least everybody has a chance, because tiebreaker is part of the game. So there's no time. I wish we could do a full set match with no S scoring. That would be ideal if we only had, let's say, 12 to 14 kids trying out and get the ladder set up. But when you have 24, I think we might just get 4 kids, and we have 6 courts there. Maybe get 4 kids into one group, and we have 6 groups, and you guys will play on each court, and then you guys will play a tiebreaker round of robin. So that way we can at least speed up the process a little bit.
Because it's hard. Because I'm sure it's hard to do both, to get everybody a fair shot.
Yeah.
Because there's always a kid that feels like, oh, I didn't get enough of a challenge match.
Right.
But then sometimes you just have to make decisions on, frankly, just their aptitude and their ability, right? And say, unfortunately, you just need to. Yeah. Some people just don't have the stroke or have the forehand or the serve, and no matter how many challenge matches they're going to get, you're going to tell that it's not going to make a difference. You got to make that move. So, state of tennis, do you feel there's just as much interest this year, or do you feel like which way are we going in the state of tennis in regards to
I think
participation?
In general, even though we're getting a lot of kids this year, only one freshman is coming out. Is coming to varsity. But so we have a lot of young players who have played tennis recently. But I always say, in comparison to what I had before, the population is getting a little bit smaller. Maybe due to COVID, maybe due to other reasons. But overall, I think the state of tennis it's trending down a little. Yeah, just in my opinion. Because you have other sports that kids can choose.
Pickleball.
Exactly. Pickleball is getting more popular, and all the courts are filled up. I go to Lifetime, and then their courts are filled up all the time. Like a whole day's booked.
Yeah, they're redesigning the ones in Bridgewater too. They did those courts in Berkeley. It's Lifetime Fitness, a huge company, is transferring or redoing their basketball courts and making them 3 pickleball courts, or keeping some basketball. But it's crazy. And
I know a lot of outdoor tennis courts are converted into pickleball courts. Yeah. I think I had a conversation with the Department of Rec of Chatham Township. So he mentioned that if there's a chance they turn the last 2 courts at Colony into pickleball courts. So there was up for discussion. So.
But don't you need those courts to play? Exactly. They can't transfer them over. They can make them hybrid, but they can't make them just pick.
But the nets are different. The heights are different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you got to play matches on those courts.
So I mentioned that we need at least 5 courts for the high school to play.
Yeah.
You can't just turn all those 2 courts into pickleball courts, and that'll be tragic for us.
Yeah, it will be. You got to be very careful, because tennis always has peaks and valleys. 70s it was crazy, and in the 90s it was great with Courier and Sampras. But I don't know where pickleball is going to shake out. You may have all these pickleball courts in 10 years that people aren't using
them.
I've
seen more tennis players playing pickleballs. I saw John Isner and Jack Sock. They're playing exhibition match against some pickleball pros. It's actually, I mean, it's trending.
Yes.
But, again, I think it's still money driven. The people want to invest in some big companies that
Sure.
invest in pickleball. I'm not sure if they're going to turn it into a college sport. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, they got a couple of club teams.
Yeah, so-
And again, I think, I think, again, they're starting a Major League Pickleball, which is out. It's very similar to Billie Jean King's team tennis, the way it's set up.
Okay,
There's mixed
yeah.
doubles, and they're playing team format. So they have 12 teams,
Yeah.
and they all play in one event in a single elimination, right?
Right.
So they're playing. I don't find it as exciting. I didn't think team tennis was hugely exciting.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
like the single elimination tournament,
Gotcha.
single format. But look, like we said, LeBron bought a team.
Yeah.
Brady bought a team.
Yeah.
Is it going to be, we've discussed this several times, is it going to be where,
The next
the
gen,
NFL
right?
in
Yeah.
40 years
Who knows?
ago was worth nothing? The NBA Finals was on tape delay in the 70s. No one cared. Is it going to be $1 billion? Is
Sport.
franchise going to be
Yeah.
worth billions of dollars because all the ad revenue is going to come in? It's going to be, I don't know. I
Yeah.
just don't know. I don't find it exciting. I don't
Well-
find it as exciting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on to what you just said, I mean, I think tennis, most people look at it as individual sport,
Yeah.
right? You see all the pros, they're all individuals, but I think now we're adding, more team events, like the Laver Cup, there's a tournament before Australian Open, right?
The Perth thing. Yeah.
I think the team atmosphere needs to be more emphasized. I think that's a great aspect of the game, like, high school tennis, college tennis, right?
Sure.
The team camaraderie that people have, that's what it is about. It's not just your individual achievement, but it's the team effort. That's what's the beauty of the sport. If you're just playing out there on your own, what's the motivation, right? If you have somebody behind the fence supporting you, you're more motivated. I think everyone's like that. Let's go. Yeah, that's the team motivation you have.
Maybe they could do it. I mean, I don't know if you saw the Netflix documentary, the Breakpoint stuff with the new one about tennis, the whole tennis tour
Not
thing.
yet,
You
not
got to
yet.
watch it, but
Yeah.
it's the same producers that did Formula One. The Netflix thing
Okay,
on Formula.
yeah,
But
okay.
Formula One to me, and I don't know whether it's just because I know tennis and play it. Formula One has got that interesting dynamic because it's a team format, but it's very individualistic,
Yeah.
right? So you got these guys on the
Individual
same
drivers,
team,
right, yep.
but you got them with their individual goals. It would be interesting if you went to the Australian Open and Berrettini and Fanini were on a team together, and
Change
they were
the-
playing to gather points for the Australian Open together. It could be kind of interesting if
Right,
you did
yeah.
it that way, and
Yeah.
tennis would be. What do you think about
More-
that, Santi? Do you think it'd be interesting? You
More-
don't have to answer. Yeah,
more
you just-
entertaining, right? More entertaining. If
I
you
think it
have
would
a
be.
team, make it individual and team events, right? Yeah.
I think it would be.
I mean, because I was at the Laver Cup last year,
Yeah.
in
I was
in
jealous,
London,
yes, I saw.
in London. So, when you watch these big guys, they're behind each other. It's great. You play better, and then you have these guys behind you coaching you. Imagine that, right? So it's
Federer, it's another great idea by this guy.
Right, yeah.
It's
So-
that is unbelievable to watch Nadal coaching Federer and
Right.
Federer giving Andy Murray advice. It's crazy.
yeah. So
So, I don't think tennis is dead. I
No,
think
it's not.
people
It's
like
just-
to do that.
yeah.
But practice-wise, do you? I probably asked you this question before. How do you feel when you're coaching out there? Do you feel like less is more? How much do you feel like you need to say? Are you more strategic, or do you feel like you need to talk more tactics? What do you think when you're out there?
I think usually during the first week when we do drills, I focus more on their technical skills. There anything that we can work on. In terms of forehand, backhand, and volleys. Are you turning enough? Are you moving your feet to the right spot? Your service motion, things like that. And when we get into matches, challenge matches, I always tell them guys doing changeover. If you want to talk to me, we can talk, because that's the same thing when we play matches. And doing those changeovers, I can give you tips to see what we can do, strategically to improve your game. I think that's I touch on both. Like during drills, I do one thing, and during matches, I touch on other things. I think, yeah, that's my style. Kind
Okay.
of. Yeah.
Well, listen. Good luck with the season, Coach. I mean, I hope we get it started, for Christ's
Yeah,
sakes.
I know. Tomorrow we're gonna start outside. I know it's gonna be windy and cold, but it's they have to suck it up and deal with it. I told them to bundle up. So
Any words of wisdom for parents, players out there, parents that want their kid to start playing tennis, kids that want to try out for their team, they're reticent. Like, what's your overall advice for a kid out there?
I think, first of all, tennis is a great sport. I mean, especially high school tennis. If you have been playing tennis, you should definitely come out and play. But if you want to do better or achieve some kind of goals for yourself at a high school level, most of the time you should spend is off season. Because as a high school coach, we only get 2 or 3 weeks, during preseason, and not too much we can do. I do my best during preseason, try to help out everybody, but, I can't focus on 16 kids.
Yeah.
So, spend more time off season, play, do clinics, do privates, play tournaments, get more experience off season. And when you come to tryouts, you won't be afraid, or you won't be panicking when you play these matches. Because I think a lot of guys, not just boys, girls, I'm so scared when I come on the court. I don't know, you lose, all of your skill sets when you practice, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, the more matches you play, the more tournaments you play, the better you're gonna get. Because it'll be the same. Just gonna practice, play the match the way you practice.
So, it's the reps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well.
And also, it's all mental, right? We know that. It's all mental.
It's all between the ears. You've seen kids play great tennis in practice and then can't come together when they play a match.
Also, believe yourself. Believe yourself. I mean, believe that, you have worked hard. You have put so much effort into it. Do your best on your team. And the only person you have to be happy is yourself, right? Yeah. So you say, okay, I did my best. He's a better player or she's a better player.
Yeah.
I got nothing to regret. I'm going to try harder off season, and I'll beat that person next time. I think that's the correct mentality, when no matter where you play, right? Recreational or college level, it's the off-court time that you're spending, the on-court time, and the results will come if you spend enough time and do the correct thing, right, Steve? Yeah.
I mean, that's good advice, Coach. There's no replacing hard work and putting the time in.
Yeah.
You should be nervous if you didn't work hard because you didn't work hard.
Exactly.
And you didn't train and get ready.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And if you did the hard work and you lost, you can sleep well at night.
I mean, you get tired doing matches because I haven't practiced enough that with that shot.
You're not
right?
confident in those shots.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with that shot, so I'm not going to go for it. Yeah, if you do enough in practice, it'll become very natural. It'll be part of your game very naturally.
That's why tennis is life. If you're not going to be comfortable doing anything if you're not prepared, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So, Coach.
Sure.
Good
Thank
luck,
you.
man.
Oh, thank you.
Great to see you. Everybody, answers in the actions. Keep doing something. Go out there, do something.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Hope you like the podcast. Please share it with your friends. Anybody that you know, anybody that's into tennis, anybody that's into bettering themselves, share it.